English translation, 455th contact. Monday, 29th October 2007, 15:04 hours.
Lovely to have you back. When did you get back? But be heartily welcomed and greeted, dear friend.
Thank you for your welcome and greeting, which I return with joy. We have been back for 6 days already, and since then we have had a lot to do. Besides the fact that I have also been trying to clarify a few things for myself regarding upcoming extraordinary events, which you probably want to have as predictions again. But it is really only extraordinary things that I want to mention.
It does not have to be the same, because I have something to show you. A letter from E and a reply to it, which I suggested, if Bernadette wrote something. If you want to read, please.
Ta reads the letter and the answer to it.
This is regrettable. But after all the untruths caused by E and by irresponsible behavior and machinations that are also fomented in falsehood, the letter is not surprising. The way I see the situation, this is being done out of fear that the irresponsible machinations committed could be exposed publicly. And if I see rightly, then you also regret the whole thing, because you both were very close to each other after all, but your trust was shamefully abused after about 12 years, which caused you a lot of grief, and which you still have to bear with today.
You are right about that, but my grief has turned into regret for quite some time, so I do not burden myself with it anymore. But what do you think of the answer Bernadette wrote? And what do you think about E passing that letter around? Unfortunately, the last sentence is incorrect, because the group members do not yet know about this letter. And what is said about reproaches of past things about Ava and Selena? What do you think? For my part, I think that this is an exceptional case in which these reproaches must be made in order to stimulate conscience.
I guess it is just Bernadette's answer.
Right, because I did not add anything, I was neutral about it.
That is what I thought. Actually, the writing is from Bernadette's point of view, not yours. And what she writes is not your words, but hers. And according to her opinion, what she writes is also correct, because it is a personal opinion, and there is nothing wrong with it. But what cannot be called correct is the fact that she writes on behalf of all group members when they do not know about it, as you say.
And what do you think about the reprimand for Ava and Selena? And what are your thoughts when the answer letter is shown around?
My opinion on this is that this is probably correct, because E actually has to be confronted with it in response to the reply letter, and because this, as I know E from my analyses, is the only possibility to get the conscience to budge. Under other circumstances, however, such reproaches would not be appropriate, because the past must always remain the past. And regarding the fact that when Bernadette's letter is shown around by E.I., then E harms their self with it, because then automatically questions are asked which have to be answered. And if E tells lies in the process, then things will only get worse, because sooner or later even these will be recognized.
That is what I think and teach. Then something else. See here, that is where I started my great work, the Goblet of the Truth, the teaching of the prophets. It will probably be quite extensive, and for the time being I do not see an end to it, because the memory banks do not contain any foreseeing with the whole thing.
This surprises me, because you should not begin and complete this great work for another 10 years. What made you decide to dedicate yourself to this work right now?
You really want to know?
Of course.
Fine, but I do not want you to do anything about it, because I want to be treated as an earthling without special rights. It is enough that you have helped me again and again when I had my immune system destroyed, or when I had accidents. Furthermore, I do not want it to be said later that you have helped me with regard to a serious damage to my health, and have given me special treatment. but that you have let down other humans on the earth with their serious suffering.
From your words, I gather it must be something serious with your health. Speak up, my friend.
It turned out that I had to see a cardiologist, because my doctor found out that I had been suffering from cardiac arrhythmia for some time. Now it has been determined that the valve of the aorta, or the aortic artery of the heart, is calcified and only works to 2/3, which is why I have constant pain in the left side of my chest. These I can contain somewhat with heart medication, but they do not disappear completely. In February next year, I have to go back for a checkup to see what has happened in the 6 months since the first examination. In the worst case, I would have to undergo heart surgery to get an artificial heart valve inserted that would last for about 15-20 years. But now I do not know what the result of all this will be, whether I will suddenly end or whether I will survive an operation, which is why I will call up the Goblet of the Truth from the memory banks 10 years earlier than intended. The calcification on the heart valve occurred unexpectedly, although the doctors say that perhaps something had contributed to the fact that in the last 15 years, the evil had developed to its present state since childhood. That was really not foreseen, which is why it can now be said that I am leaving much earlier than it should actually be the case. For this reason, I have begun to call up the Goblet of the Truth and write it down, as is my duty. And this must be fulfilled before I go.
Your great sense of duty has been very strong since your childhood. So I now understand your reasoning for wanting to finish the work before it is too late, when in fact it is likely that you will make your last journey in this world sooner than expected. And in this case, I can also understand you and comply with your wish that you do not want to accept any help from me, because it is not a trivial matter, as with your attacks of illness and accidents. Your decision is worthy of you.
Thank you, dear friend. Then the whole thing is comprehensively discussed. Then you could reveal some of the predictions, after which we will surely have other stuff to talk about.
During my last visit, I mentioned that Benazir Bhutto, a democracy activist who had fled abroad to the Arab world years ago, is returning to Pakistan to continue her pursuit of democracy. But it will be in the next few days that the military ruler Pervez Musharraf will override the constitution and place the woman under house arrest, causing great serious unrest throughout the country. But after a short time, Benazir Bhutto's house arrest is lifted, but only to be reinstated when the woman calls for a demonstration against the ruler, so that new elections can be held soon. So the riots will continue and get worse. In Indonesia, the volcano Krakatau will erupt again in the Sunda Strait. During the eruption in 1883, it triggered a 20-meter-high tsunami that devastated the coasts and large parts of the interior of West Java and southeast Sumatra and caused about 40,000 deaths, although this eruption will not be of great significance. Then, on the 14th of November, Chile is hit by a 7.8 magnitude quake, causing considerable damage to houses and other buildings. Fortunately, there are only a few human lives to mourn. This is followed by a stronger quake in Ecuador, while Bangladesh is hit by a severe cyclone, which not only causes all kinds of very serious damage, but also claims several thousand lives. That is what I can tell you for now. I will probably be able to tell you more when I come here on the 18th of November for another visit, because I have a lot to discuss with you, but I want to start already today because the whole thing will take some time. So, if you do not mind if I start right away, if you have no questions,
I did not, my friend.
then let me start